The real answer is you make the protocol do the work. You can't trust people, but you can trust code.
The renowned computer intelligence expert Edward Snowden presented an hour-long speech as a virtual guest at Camp Decrypt in Napa, California, where he discussed the state of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptocurrencies in general, especially from a privacy standpoint. And in this aspect, according to Snowden, the crypto industry is heading in the wrong direction. Snowden highlighted his worry that once a few centralized players, like Coinbase, capitulate to the regulators, it will be too late. The motto of Bitcoin is don't trust, verify. However, from Snowden's perspective, despite his admiration for Bitcoin, Snowden was critical of Bitcoin and its lack of transaction anonymity. He worries that the broad adoption and onboarding of billions of users into the cryptocurrency space would undermine the original web's intent and spirit. In the end, the large centralized companies will have KYC and start scanning your face when you want to buy, and the regulators will have their CBDC.
But, until we hear from Snowden, make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, as we provide daily content to keep you updated on the most recent marketing news.
Other people might not have a hacking risk. They might have a social risk. They might have an honesty risk, something like that. But by being a part of this larger cohort, you could make sure that basically nobody cheated the network. And it worked, right? Since then, there have never been any, as far as anyone's knows, sort of greater emissions that should have happened on the network. And eventually, and this is why it came out later, was they moved beyond it. And that key is no longer used. It's no longer sort of a threat to the network. That whole sort of proving channel is gone, and they used a more modern solution that didn't have these same risks. And so they did kind of a little mini documentary talking about this, and Zuko reached out to me and was like, would you be willing to sort of say that, you were in this? Because I participated pseudonymously. I didn't want anybody to use me for a marketing purpose. It was just to contribute. It was a very long time ago. Again, I wasn't a central figure in the project. I didn't do any development. I didn't do any coding. It was more that they had, in order to kickstart the Zcash network, which used a novel kind of cryptography that allowed really strong privacy between transactions, that wasn't doing shell games, trying to move things around, or just use mixing to the chain, but use zero knowledge proofs. They had to create what was being internally called a toxic waste key. And this was a key that, if anyone had it, could be used to basically mint new coins on the network and a bunch of other bad things, as I understand it. Now, there were a lot of people in the academic cryptography circles that I followed and I was paying attention to, who were talking about how interesting this project was. And I was aware of it actually from a professor at Johns Hopkins University by the name of Matthew Green, who I think tweeted a link to a paper called Zero Cash. This was before it was Zcash. And I just saw the idea of this. And of course, I had been a long-time Bitcoin user. And I was like, this is amazing. This is incredible. It's something very important that, frankly, should have been integrated into the actual Bitcoin network through protocol improvements, at this period in time. But they hadn't really taken privacy seriously, and unfortunately still don't. So I was looking at this more like an academic project than, some kind of, everybody makes crypto coins now to try to get a capital return on it. But they were going, how do we get this key, construct this key, that if anybody had it, would be harmful, and how do we make sure nobody does this? So they created this thing called the ceremony, where they would basically do a cryptographic round among many different participants around the world, different people, and the way it was structured was such that if there was one honest person in the entire cohort, the dangerous properties of this key wouldn't exist. And you could basically ensure the network was fully safe, and all you needed was one honest person. And one person whose keys weren't stolen, whatever. Everybody else could be against it, could be trying to exploit it, could be doing whatever, and it would work. And this was something that I got approached by. I can't recall actually who approached me. It might have been Zuko. I believe probably was Zuko, who might have gotten to me because I had written about this paper and my interest in it. And said, hey, would you be willing to serve as a part of this ceremony? And I went, well, why not? I'm one person where nobody knows where I am, what I'm doing, whatever. It would be very hard to target me. I know quite a lot about computer security, but at the same time, I can at least have the honesty layer. So my sort of vulnerability in this would be hacking, right? It would be surveillance. It would be cameras in the walls from the Russians or whatever, stealing my computer, using a bad computer, or whatever. I think members of the public, certainly, they don't even know that this happened. But members of the crypto community largely aren't taking this seriously enough. This is absolutely a do or die moment for the relationship between the network and the state. And I'll get into that a little bit more, but there is a level of technical innocence or less charitably ignorance that people need to understand the average person has, right? What is happening now is what happened and destroyed the spirit of the original web. I think a lot of people who are in this room, they've been technical for a very long time. They've been a part of the internet for a very long time. They've seen it change. A lot of you in the room remember what dial-up modems sound like, right? That's not actually shared by the vast majority of the population, even people who are of the right age. And we lost that internet because we onboarded billions of people, and the people who were providing the gateways for that didn't have their best interests at heart, right? That's what we're seeing now. We're seeing people exploiting the kind of ignorance that made so many people now think tapping like the Facebook app on your phone, that's the internet as they understand it. And now think, crypto is Coinbase, right? Or something else equally horrible as that. And to you, those of you in the room who are, work for Coinbase, it's really nothing personal. You're just an example of the sort of overly compliant, overly indulgent sort of thinking, which, yeah, you guys get rich, you'll make a lot of money, but have you actually sort of advanced the interests of society? Maybe in the same way that people sell lawnmowers do. You're not even building lawnmowers, you're selling them. Great, you've popularized the lawnmower. Lawnmowers are important, they're valuable, right? But when I go and buy a lawnmower, nobody asks for me to hold up my passport and scan my face. And the fact that you guys go along with that is frankly toxic and embarrassing. Normal Bitcoin users don't have that level of awareness. They don't understand the network flows. They don't understand simply your IP address sending, this transaction to this node that then passes it on. All of that leaves a history that is largely being recorded. There are ways on Bitcoin that they can improve this, and that are done like coin join transactions and the whole join market thing, which are great, but they're way too technical for average people. We see some wallet providers who are trying to build in their own mixers, and that's great. It's an improvement, but it's really not enough. You have to have this stuff in the protocol. It has to happen on chain. And that's where you see things like, yeah, Monero is great. I use Monero, right? People think I'm like a super Monero hater, and no, they've got a couple super toxic people in their community. And there were some bad design decisions like a million years ago. And it's not perfect, right? But what is? Zcash has its own flaws too. And then Zcash, it's also great, but for a lot of people, they're not using the shielded transactions, or at least they weren't using the shielded transactions. Now it's getting easier. They've got mobile clients that will you'll do a transparent transaction and then it'll roll you over to a shielded transaction automatically. And these things are great. This is what we need, though. We need people to be able to transact on chain at any time and effortlessly without their awareness, the same way that when you connect to, Gmail through a web browser, it's using HTTPS. You should have levels of privacy protection baked into the protocol. And this prevents the kind of tomfoolery that we see the U.S. government beginning to engage in with things like OFAC and Tornado Cash. The challenge here is everybody knows who is technically involved in this, that Bitcoin is really bad on privacy. I think the only people who do it worse actually are Ethereum. And that's because they use the account-based model as opposed to the address-based model. But a lot of people only use like one account. So they see it's like as if you were using Bitcoin, you were just reusing the same wallet. You get this giant history cruft that just follows you wherever, and then you create all these chain explorers, and then people see every smart contract you've interacted with on Ethereum, and it's problematic. Bitcoin suffers from the same thing, but at least largely because there's not as much contract-based activity on Bitcoin. They only see, address A sends to address B and so on. They follow it out. They chart it. They see where it splits on the chain, and then they try to go where it goes back to a common node, or they track spends, or they go where it goes through KYC gateways. And, they find out it with the tools that I had at the NSA in like 2013, tracking Bitcoin transactions would have been very, very easy. And this is why, even though I used Bitcoin to rent the servers that I used for communicating with journalists and passing, massive archive files over the internet anonymously, I was using Tor. I was using sort of mixing services. I was trying to basically do anything that would buy time. It wasn't that I thought the NSA wouldn't be able to follow the trail. It was that, I'd have to go to this guy, and then I'd get routed over to the office, and then they wait on it because they had other things to do. And it wasn't until there would be a sustained effort that they would be able to do this. And by then, I would have already contacted the journalists, so the door would be closed. The real answer is you make the protocol do the work. You can't trust people, but you can trust code, or at least you can trust code more. Let me get back on the Tornado Cash thing, because that's sort of where all of this gets complex and interesting. What you just said, where like the big players will become the sizable entities in the field, we know that works. That's simply sort of efficiencies of scale. It's going to happen here. My plea to those of you who are in that sort of big end of the pool is, if you're going to cave strategically. Leave space for the protocol and for the sort of values that we're all supposed to be representing here, to make sure that, the government wants to do something and they can layer some law on you because you're big and you've got 10 million employees and they can all come and arrest you. But make sure that, if you are a stub, and you have to check passports and you have to identify wallets to go, one hop out, you understand and you structure your systems in such a way, and everyone understands that that's fine. But as soon as somebody goes one more hop out to the second hop, they move to the other wallet, your trail goes cold. And when it comes back into your exchange, you have to ask people what their purposes are. They declare this, whatever, but you really have no way of checking it. And you don't want to be in a position where you can check that. Because really, that's not your role in society, even if the government says it is. That's for police. That's for intelligence, right? That's their job. And their job is supposed to be hard. Don't make their lives easier.
Do you agree that price doesn't matter in the short term? Leave a comment if you found the content interesting. Click in like button. It really helps the channel find viewers similar to you. If you're new to the channel or haven't subscribed to it, click in subscribe button. We post content daily to keep you up to date on the current market and news. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.